Hello again, Ian Stuckey with Mastermind Games, back with more Warmachine, this time going for the Cryx character Helljack Malice. Old Bronze 09197. Now, there isn't a whole lot of lore on Malice, unfortunately, but it is a character, and it is, let's see, variant of the Reaper with a Death Claw instead of a Hell Driver. And its harpoon gun is a little heavier. Higher power, drag. Its big thing, which you can tell from all the souls coming off of it, is aside from collecting them, it can spend soul tokens to possess enemies, forcing them to advance under its control and making them single attack. I believe it specifies melee, but I'd have to double check that. And my neighbors are yelling again. And I've reached a point where I simply cannot care. If they're going to keep yelling at each other all hours of the night, then, well, YouTube can hear it. But back to Malice. This is the new sculpt with a new base, or part of a new kit that can make this the Reaper or the Corruptor. So I find I like this better than the upgrade kits, which this used to be. The only upgrade kit jack I've done so far has been Rosciante for Mercenaries, and that thing was a pain to put together. So right now I'm just getting the underlying framework here. Because iron is so rare in Cryx, they skimp on it, since they can make cortexes more easily than other factions. So that is why their light warjacks, called bone jacks, actually use bones in them to save on metal. And Cryx favors essentially disposability, or numbers disposability in their chassis. Their Helljacks, despite being their heavies, only have about as many damage boxes as a light. That's a bit runny there. I am also using a larger brush than I normally would for this. I might redo some of this legwork here actually, but let's do this for the time being. Noisy neighbors. Alright. Now, some of this is probably going to get redone in other colors as I move on. But we're just going to err on the side of overkill with getting the moving parts, for lack of a better word. Alright. Now, one thing that makes Cryx is gunpowder is pretty rare. So they get the majority of their supply from raiding, and thus have learned to make do with non-gunpowder weapons. So the Reaper harpoons, for example, use steam pressure. And of course, the Corruptor uses poisons. And the Harrower uses weaponized souls. So, all sorts of creative solutions to close the arms race there, many of which would be considered horrifying by most sane people. Okay, let's see, there's a little more I want to get. I'll do this for now, but I might redo that part later. Definitely want to get this grill portion here. Looks like Malice might even have a hinged jaw, which would not make much sense, so this might just be for intimidation. Cryx uses their warjacks to intimidate as much as they do as to. Cryx warjacks are weapons of intimidation as much as they are weapons of war. There, I think that's about the correct way to say it. We'll call that good for now. And yeah, let's stop before I get myself in trouble. Let's leave this be. Come back in a bit, add some more color. Okay. 09038, or yeah, 38 Rainy Gray. We'll see how far along I get with this. I'm getting kind of worn out. The armor in the end will be black. This is just step one to get a nice shiny black. Took me a while to figure out how to get just straight black looking good, because honestly I find it boring just to be a completely flat black. There needs to be some depth to it. But so speaking of the color black, in the 1980s G.I. Joe toy line, there's a rumor that the Snake Eyes character was colored black just because they were running out of money to do the paints. I don't know how true that is or not. Though this is not technically an internet rumor because I read it in a book. Sorry. Been feeling kind of funky lately. But just because I read it in a book doesn't necessarily mean it's true. Did not intend to conk my camera there. I have trim on this carapace. I'll probably do in a different color, but I want the bulk of it in black. Now, let me think a minute. How was I going to do this? Leaving that eye area blank because I do have a plan for it. Also uncertain what color those hoses are going to be, but I'll have it figured out by the time I finish up. I'm leaving the lower part of the shoulder armor blank for a reason as well. worried about getting the talons on this Deathclaw because we'll be picking out parts of it in steel anyway. That's pretty good. One more there, there. Go ahead and let that dry for a bit before moving on. And so far, so good. Okay, next up, Blood Red 09003. This is going on the trim secondary color. May not. Something I may or may not do on a non-character model, but for a character, a little more flitter is definitely something that would be appropriate. Now, as for one thing about my Cryx color scheme is I have had so much trouble figuring one out that my Cryx army is overall about as cohesive as a bar fight. I may strip the paint off some of my older models and redo them at some point, but I am not too keen on doing that anytime soon, since I did that a few years ago with my Signar. So, this was long before I started doing these videos, mind you. As you can see, I've switched to a smaller brush so I can get finer control. I may go ahead and touch up some of the gray off camera, but I had specific ideas about what and how I was going to paint, so. This maybe have a bit too much water in it. Take that route. You can see how it's starting to come together here. I think that's enough red. Just go over the areas where it got a little too thin. And once I figure out what color the hoses are going to be, I'll take care of that. But I can also take Blackened Steel 09205 and start on the weapons. Getting the digits on the death claw here. Talons and spikes, feet. There's something interesting I've come across, not about this specific chassis, but the Slayer. Cryx is kind of standard issue heavy, or low cost heavy. Is that it might be quadrupedal when it's running, and it looks like, based on artwork as well, that the fingers on these claws are retractable. That's especially present on the original sculpt of the Slayer, and which has no matched pair of the same weapon Malice possesses. Now, Privateer Press usually puts a ton of detail into the concept art when they're figuring this, when they're, going so far as I'm trying to ramble a bit as to figure out how something would work, like when they did conversions of Cirrus art showing how the shields they have would interlock for a shield wall. One thing that they've never really explained is how Reapers and Malice actually reload their harpoons into their guns. Because while it does have the drag roll and obviously the chain is retracting, how exactly, assuming that the spear extends beyond this, how does that link back in if the chain's dangling from the bottom like this? Oh, and as far as how big the new Reaper Sculpt Harpoon is going to be, the only difference between it and Malice is Malice has this extra piece here. So it actually uses the same assembly. Huh. That got way too much water there. Trying to get the excess, there we go. Trying to get the excess out of there. There's an actual hole in the blade. Likely meant as a weight saving measure. Okay. So that's just going to leave the ghosts and the pipes, which I haven't quite figured out yet, so go ahead and let this dry while I figure out the pipes. Let's try adjusting that a little bit more. Alright. So, pure black 09037, I'm going to start shading now. I decide I'm going to do the pipes as a sort of pseudo lighting effect, so I'll get that when I hit that step. When you're using straight black, you always need to thin it out more than you normally would. So where it's usually a 1-to-1 ratio of water to paint, you gotta go 2 to 3 parts water to 1 part paint. So this will cover up most of the gray, but not necessarily all of it. It's also tricky when you're thinning it out to this runny. So that needs to be accounted for. Still trying to get the focus issues worked out. That seems to be my particular nemesis with these hobby videos, so and I got in red, which I don't want, so let's just blot that out. That's exactly why I keep a paper towel on hand. Keep my brush wet. And my neighbors are starting in at it already, and it's not even 9 in the morning yet. Oh boy. Rats. Again, this straight black is a fairly difficult color to work with, at least the way I like to paint. Anyway. Doesn't matter if I hit that pipe there or not, because it's going to be painted over in pure white once I get to the lighting effects step. Cryx models tend to be very busy visually, more so than other warjacks, just because many of the moving parts, for lack of a better word, that would be covered up by armor plating or exposed here. Again, because of Cryx's difficulty in acquiring steel to work with. Look at the legs before I get the arms. I'm trying to end with the areas I'm most likely to bump into. Make the bronze there. I normally might not care as much about nicking other colors with the shading, but again, with using just straight black, it will have a significant effect. Going from the highest point on the model to the lowest. careful around those spikes. Just have to be careful during this. Okay, there we go. There we go, that's got it. So let that dry, move on to the next in a bit. Okay, well that black is not completely dry yet. I can start on the weapons with Adamantium Black 09124. This is a metallic black. Arbitrarily starting down here. And this elbow spike I got off camera when I realized I missed it. But I can try not missing anything up top before I finish off the heavy harpoon here. plot that out of the hole. Otherwise, I'll just make a little film. There we go. Make sure I get the other side. I think I made it worse. Okay. So that's going to leave the red and the bronze. And then I can start the lighting effects. So, back when it's dry. Okay. Deep red 09002. Well, I don't know if you can hear that. My neighbor's being loud again. At least this time it sounds happy instead of angry. Yeah. Living in a condo means sometimes you have to deal with drama worthy of a daytime soap opera. But getting the trim. See, now that I'm pretty sure was a happy yell, not an angry yell like I usually hear out of them, but yeah. That was me clicking my jaw, by the way. One of the frustration noises I will end up making when I'm trying to do something and dealing with something like what's coming up through my floor right this minute. Alright. That's got the trim. Now, just need to let that dry, and then I can do the bronze and start on the lighting effects. Okay. Scorched metal 09125. This is the last actual shade before I start working on the lighting effects. And this is messing around with the triad to get a different effect. And hopefully I can get this without hitting the black underneath. Okay, that works. And it doesn't matter if I nick these captive souls one way or another because they'll get painted over in white when I get ready to actually fill them in. feeling very talkative right now, I'm just tired. Okay, that needs to get cleaned up a bit. That's why the towel's on hand. What I'm doing overall is to give this a darker look on the standard triads. And yeah, that's what Reaper sells these as, that you can buy them a la carte. But with their little system, go one number lower than your base coat, generally, for your shade, and one number higher for the highlight. But again, you can play around with it to get some interesting effects. Okay, that takes care of that. Once it's dry, I can get the lighting effects started. Alright. Pure white 09039. We'll get the lighting effects started. And this area right in here is, I believe, a flaw in the sculpting. Nuts. I think it was supposed to be, there's supposed to be some part that these hoses connect into, but they just kind of fade out. It's trying to make certain I'm not missing anything. I'm going to be ending with the very top of the chassis. Okay. Just about there. The maddened, tortured souls that Malice has undoubtedly stolen. Yeah, this is the first thing I'm doing this morning, so still not completely conscious. Okay, once that's dry, I can add the light. So back in a bit, but we're getting there. Okay, pale green 09012. So I did start the arc off of camera here, just putting pure white over it, just because it's a light color on black primer. Gotta figure out why I keep dropping so many frames too at this point, because this is getting a little weird. Going from dropping only 1 or 2 frames a take to hundreds now. I'm not sure what's changed, but whatever. So thinning that out. reason for the green is Cryx uses a sort of necromantically infused coal called necrotite. Burns hotter and longer, allowing their Warjacks to use smaller loads and accomplish things that other Warjacks can't just because of the extra power it provides. But it also produces fumes more toxic than carbon monoxide, so Cryx doesn't care because most of their troops are undead in the first place. But that would cause problems for most mortal soldiers. There's no in-game effect, though, for it, since it's assumed that most of these necrotite-fueled furnaces are getting taken out of action before the fumes can build up enough to be a problem. And then taking a flat brush and just going over the arc. And this is getting weird here. Really weird. I don't know what's going on with some of this. Well, okay. I just need to highlight now and Do a few details and finish up the arc and we'll be done. Okay. Tarnished Steel 09206. Maybe this time I'll figure out what I keep doing wrong to get all these dropped frames. So dry brushing, so I'm rubbing out most of the excess paint on, or most of the paint on a paper towel, and I'm using no water. And the overall darker look I'm trying is to get a blighted look to material. Now in the Iron Kingdoms, which is the actual role-playing setting that Warmachine was based off of, the dragons of the world emanate a sort of energy that kind of works like radiation called blight, and it kills and mutates living creatures. Actually mutates first then kills, which is why the dragon that rules Cryx has created a nation of the undead. They can't die because they're already dead, which is useful since his goal is to kill the other dragons. But, and that is obviously the abridged version. People who actually play Warmachine know much more. But it can also affect other materials as well. Cryx makes prime use of these blighted materials. Fire Red 09004. For example, the bones of blighted creatures are almost as strong as steel and make a good substitute. Are used in their light warjacks called bone jacks for that exact reason. Done on frames. I think maybe I've been holding these models too close to the camera when I do this stuff, so it might be one of my problems. But anyway, the whole blight thing is why I'm trying to go for a darker. More dark would be slaughtering grammar there. I'm trying to watch my grammar because I work with a lot of people who barely speak English despite the fact they consider it their primary language. In fact, I work with a lot of people for whom English is a second language, who speak it much better than native English speakers I work with. Okay. Now, Coppery Orange 09102. I'm going to try another variant on this. See what happens. You know, this might actually make it too bright. It wasn't a bad idea, but I think I'm at. Yeah, I'm going to try it, see what I get. Just need to find an appropriate brush that I haven't used this time. There we go. Just need to get a grip on it. Okay. Well, not too bad. Now I'm concerning myself with the most readily visible areas. That actually works well. Gives it a darker, more rusty color. Okay, something's going on here. Maybe I need to... Getting a lot of dropped frames, I don't know why. Maybe I've got a bug in my program. Let's see here. Okay, yeah, this is gonna... I might have to try to debug my system here, because something funny's going on. I thought at first it was just maybe I'm doing something while I film, but I just had a few thousand frames of this clip drop randomly, so just Alright. Now that looks like it's good. Adamantium black again, 09124. I use this to shade the weapons now. It's going to highlight the carapace, and if this works, I should get a nice, shiny, metallic black. Just drop my brush into a very awkward place. And my neighbors are up. Okay. Now, going to take, I'll do leaf green 09011. I said I was going to do a pseudo lighting effect on the pipes here. Well, we'll see if I can pull off what I'm thinking about. But I want it to look like they're a solid object lit from within. Let's see, I'm going to need a smaller brush. There we go, that should work. Well, it's working to a certain extent. because these warjacks are steam powered for the most part. They have a lot of jointed pipes and hoses transferring steam pressure from one part of the machine to another. And, so not quite how I'd imagine it, but not too bad. So now, go ahead and move a few things around and get the arc finished up. Oh golly. Well, this could get really ugly really quick. Alright. So, got that centered. Pure black 09037. A little more than that. And this is a self-healing cutting mat that has the basing sizes for the common 3 that don't have predetermined markings. So, carefully finding the edges, because Warmachine relies on distinct front and back arcs to determine where you can attack through. Basically, the front half you can attack through, back half you generally can't, and you get bonuses enemies get bonuses against you for hitting you in the back, called back strike. It's usually just on hitting you, but some models get extra damage dice if they hit you with a back strike. Okay, so just backfill now. I always overextend and then backfill. Okay. Now once that's dried up, I can get the basic material on there. Alright, time for basing. So, bottle of glue's stuck. That happens sometimes, so white glue. Plenty of water. Brush you're going to sacrifice. Then just paint around the feet of the model. Be very generous with your glue. And this particular style of base has a nice lip to catch flock in. And these solutions so it not nearly as much mess. But just make sure you get a very solid coat. And then, using a mix of different kinds of flock, dip it in there, shaking off the excess. And taking a separate brush that's dry, I'm just going to push it away from the toes and other areas where it got on by mistake. That will happen. It's just going to have to set for a bit before I seal it, but just about done. Okay, last step. Taking a sprayer brush on adhesive, eyedropper, and just carefully dripping it in and around the basic material. Just make it look wet. If you don't give it some time to set first, though, this will just push your materials around. And that's it. Malice from the Cryx faction of Warmachine. Going to continue with Warmachine. Until next time, I am Ian Stuckey with Mastermind Games, signing out.